So yeah, man, thanks for coming. Thanks for appearing. This is the Righteous Finance Show. This show is all about talking about money. I mean, I think we don't talk very much about financial life. We talk a lot about love life, work life, personal life, family life. So this one of the reasons that I wanted to make the show is to start talking about financial life, money life, because there's a lot of topics that are like kind of like taboo
Hmm.
that we don't really talk about. So that's what the kind of the purpose of the show is. And thank you for coming, Dale.
Thanks for having me, Arden.
It's amazing that you're here. I really appreciate that you could join. So real quick for the guys watching, right? Dale, you're the owner, operator, founder, and head coach of JDLS Budget Coaching,
Right.
right? And you've been doing it for a while. You've I think you started with Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and you're maybe on 10 years or 11 years of doing this, working with people, being their budget coach or their financial coach,
Hmm.
right? Do you want
Yeah.
to tell me a little bit about that? What's your background, how you got into it, whatever that you want
Well,
to share?
I don't have a financial background in terms of my professional life. I'm actually a pilot by profession. I flew in the Air Force and flew for United Airlines for about 15 years. Retired early from the airlines and went to work as a systems engineer in the aviation business, research and development. And I actually still do that full time. But I've always been passionate about money and personal finance. And I think it kind of ties back to what you were saying, Arjun, that it's something that we don't talk about. I know, and that starts early. Families typically don't cover those kinds of things with their kids. They tell
Yeah,
them how to stay out of trouble with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but you know they may
that
or may
doesn't
not.
even work sometimes.
I know that doesn't work either. But kids, may or may not encounter difficulty with those things, but they will absolutely encounter money.
Yeah,
And if they're not, if parents don't teach them how to handle it, society will. And society doesn't have a good track record for teaching solid principles.
yeah, I
So
agree with
I've
you.
always been passionate about it. Like I said, it started with leading Financial Peace University, and then the church, the pastors, as they were counseling people from the church that needed help, that my name eventually became attached to Financial Peace University. So they started sending couples my way for additional one-on-one specific help with budgeting, and it just kind of grew out of that. And I truly enjoy it. I like speaking to groups and just all manner of things. I can speak for a long time on things I know about, and I enjoy that. If I have to speak in front of a crowd about something I'm not that familiar with, then it's not very much fun. But this is fun because I've had a lifetime of dealing with this stuff, and I enjoy it. So
Yeah, right on. That's awesome. You said you retired early from being a UA pilot, right?
yes.
Is that so? Today, there's this movement called the Financial Independence Retire Early movement. It's a group of people that want to retire early. Is that the same kind of retire early that you did?
No, I've never even heard of that, to be honest with you. No, I was interested in a career change.
Okay.
I had been flying for years and years, and honestly, a commercial airline pilot's lifestyle is a little bit rough on a family. So the family separation was just starting to not really work that well for us. And I had some other opportunities. I have a computer science background, so I've always been interested in non-flying things as well. And the opportunity presented itself to get into work supporting the FAA through the research and development company that I work for. And I said, well, maybe it's time for a change. So,
So you retired into another job.
oh yeah, I'm not actually retired. I've had two jobs for about 40 years now. So,
Yeah,
no,
right on.
actual retirement is a ways off in the future.
That's the opposite of what most people would want for retirement. Like most people, even the young ones that are in this financial independence retire early movement, I think it's primarily millennials and maybe now some Gen Z people. They want to retire early so that they can never have to work again and they can work on projects that they like. They want to run away from work. They don't like
No,
working. So that's why they want to save all this money.
I suspect I will be working at something on my last day on Earth. My motto is retire early and retire often. Because
Yeah,
financially
I'm with you on that.
that's good. But no,
I
I'm
retired
retired.
once and I'm over retirement. I'm not doing it anymore.
Well, I retired from the Air Force Reserve after 30 years, and then retired from United after 15 years, and I've been with my current company about 15 years. So, uh, and when I finish, with that job, that full time job, uh, then I'm kind of hoping to do, if not full time one-on-one coaching, and pretty close to it. So I'll always be involved in something. I don't want to retire to a rocking chair on the front porch. I wouldn't last.
Right on. In a way, it sounds the rocking chair thing sounds nice, but I know that after a while I would get really, really bored of it.
Yeah,
I'm like, what else am I doing? I'm just kind of dying here, rocking away.
yeah.
So what made financial coaching your passion? What made you so passionate about it? Like what happened to you to want to get into this and help other people with it?
Well, my wife and I, when we first got married, we've been married coming up on 35 years. When we first got married, we both brought a little bit of debt to the marriage, and we were just never very disciplined about, managing our day-to-day finances. And it was something that I knew in the back of my mind we needed to pay attention to, but we weren't paying attention to it. And I've lost a lot of sleep, wondering how we're going to pay the bills. In one particular case, when we first got married, I was in the Air Force, and we went down to Austin, Texas, and bought a townhouse down there. And in very short order, you think the real estate crash of 2008 was bad? You should have been around in 1985. It was just as bad. And so basically the townhouse we bought lost all of its value. I mean, it had to be assessed at something for tax purposes, so the wood and the nails were worth something. But for all intents and purposes, it was worth nothing.
Wow.
And it came time to leave Austin, and we came back up here to Virginia, and we became involuntary absentee landlords. So we had to rent it out. We couldn't give it away, so we had to rent it out, and did that for about, I don't know, 5-6 years. And every month was a struggle. I said, wow, if the rent doesn't show up, I don't know how we're going to pay the bills. And we were literally living hand to mouth like that for years. And it was just something that I finally said enough. We are going to make some changes. And it's not about the math. I was using spreadsheets. I'm a geek. I was all about tracking spending, what have you, but it's all about behavior. If you graduated from second grade, you know all the math you need to be good at finance. But it's all about behavior and psychology. It's learning how to tell yourself no and being okay with that. And that's what it took us years to learn how to do. But we finally said that's going to be the recipe for success.
So you were tracking everything. Were you budgeting, tracking your spending and everything, doing spreadsheets before, like while you're in this process of living kind of hand to mouth?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting. I teach a system that separates bills from expenses, and there's a little bit of a war story behind that too.
Okay.
I was tracking our bills before there was any such thing as a home computer. I mean, I'm an old guy, so you got to remember I'm dating myself here with my war stories. But I was just using a notebook to make sure that all the bills got paid every month, because that was, like I said, that was before email and all that good stuff. So bills showed up in the mail, and I just let them pile up until the first of the month. I'd take them all out and start writing checks. And I created a notebook just so that I knew every bill I was expecting actually got paid. When I paid it, I put a check mark in the checkbook or in the notebook, and that was my tracking method. And then I went to a certified financial planner and said, man, we got to do something, because we have month left over at the end of the money every month. And so they put together a plan, and which is what a financial planner is supposed to do. They listened to our tale of woe, and we gave them all our input, and we came back a couple of weeks later, and they presented us with the plan. And they said, well, with the $400 you have left over every single month, we think you should invest it over here. And I have no idea where over here was, because I didn't hear anything after they said $400 extra every month. I said, I don't know what you're smoking, but we don't have $400 left over every month. If anything, we're $400 short every month. He said, well, based on the information that you gave us on paper, you have $400 left over every month. I said, interesting. So I went back home and got out my check register, old-fashioned check register. A lot of people listening to this probably don't even know what that is, but I still use one to this day. And I look back several months, I'm paging through this thing, and every couple of weeks there was an entry in my check register for cash for $200, cash, $300, just all this cash slipping through our fingers. And I said to my wife, what did we get for all this money? She said, I have no idea. So, well, we're about to figure out what we got. So that's when I created the spreadsheet system that I teach, where I separate bills. That's the easy part. Those are the things that you can probably tell me how much your mortgage payment is without having to look it up. But you probably don't know how much you spent on hair care last month, right?
$0.
Or however much you spent on, coffee at Starbucks on your way to work every day, or whatever. The expenses, the money that slips through your fingers. Yeah. And I went through, and sure enough, by the time I finished doing that exercise with my check register, it was about $400 a month that I completely had unaccounted for. So that's when my love affair with really tracking this stuff carefully day in and day out was formed, and it's worked for us ever since.
So you looked yourself literally like in the financial mirror, saw a picture that you didn't like, and you're like, I need to change this.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So, it's not, nobody else can change it. It's gotta be me.
Right. So it was sort of like an outward crisis situation that made you look and say, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Right.
That might be happening now with coronavirus. Like, people are looking at themselves and saying, oh, wait a minute, I might lose my job. And a lot of people have lost their jobs, and there's all this bad stuff happening, and a lot of potential for things to go wrong financially here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't control your external circumstances. You just, you have to be prepared. That's all you can do, because, and you're right, Arjun, now it's Corona. Who knows what it's going to be next year? A couple of years ago, it was, all government employees were getting pink slips left and right as the government shut down for a short time. You don't know. It could be, bad medical news that you get tomorrow. You never know. And I think Dave Ramsey referred to it as the GOK fund, the God only knows. In fact, I remember one time years ago, we had I think it was a hot water heater went out on us or something. That we had, paid however much we had to get a new hot water heater. And as the month ended, my wife kind of breathed a sigh of relief and said, boy, I'm sure glad that's behind us. I said, don't get comfortable. I mean, all I know, I can tell you, it's probably next month. It's probably not going to be a hot water heater, because we got a brand new one sitting down there in the basement. But I bet it's going to be something else. And almost without exception, every month it's something. So you might as well be ready for it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. You never know what you're going to need the money for, and if you're not prepared for it. One of the things that I liked, I watched your interview with Michael Gillies.
Oh, right.
And one of the things I liked about your mentality about this is that you shouldn't wait for the crisis to come to show itself, and then you're like, oh, I got to do something about it. You should be ready for that crisis, expect it, even if it's never going to happen. You don't know, right? Like, you build up.
I might as well be ready for it.
Exactly. You want to prepare for it when times are good, and that's what I really liked about your perspective on that.
Hope for the best and plan for the worst, and I think that probably comes from being, a pilot mindset as a professional pilot. You don't just take off and hope things go well. You train for when the engine quits on takeoff. Then when it quits, that's the wrong time to wonder how to handle the emergency. You better be ready before that happens.
Yeah, that big book there. I don't know if I don't know how that works, but if you have a big book, you're like, okay, let me read about what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Actually, it was about 4 or 5 books about like that.
Oh, wow.
As a matter of fact, I remember I flew fighter type aircraft in the Air Force. And I remember when we were first getting into the flying business, my instructor said, if you ever have to eject from this airplane, the time to decide to eject is before you ever take off. I thought about that, and it took a while for that to kind of make sense to me. And I said, you're absolutely right. If I take off in this airplane and the taxpayers have given me a bad airplane, they're going to get a bad airplane back. I'm not going to risk my life. It's a mindset. It's kind of like, okay, I'm prepared. I'm going to handle the emergency as best I can. And, I've thought this stuff through ahead of time. So it's no different with our finances. Think it through. Look at your history. You know what has happened in the rearview mirror. Now start looking out the windshield and expect it. It's probably going to happen again.
Because if you don't remember your history, we're pretty much bound to repeat it.
You're doomed to repeat it.
So a lot of people have been selling, like they've seen the stock market crashing 30, 40%. And I think this was at the end of March or April or something. And they said some people were like, okay, I need to sell because I don't want to lose more. Take the money while I can and run, make sure it's safe. Like, oh, the stock market thing is risky here. And they started making a lot of decisions based on like what was happening in the market. As a coach and with your experience, like what would you say to those people that maybe made a emotional decision to get out of the market or to try and save what they had left?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It was an emotional decision. It was not one made with cold calculation. You know, when people say I lost all this money, you haven't lost anything until you sell. You know, if you own shares of something and they're going down in value, you still own the shares. You know? And I know I can, from experience, my 401k crashed like everybody else's, but I just sat back and quit looking at it, and it's almost come back to what it was before COVID. I mean,
Yeah,
so
you're right.
down and went back up. So don't look at it. You know, I mean, if you need to liquidate retirement assets in order to fund your lifestyle, then you didn't plan very well, and maybe you need to make a change to your lifestyle rather than a change to your retirement assets, right?
Right.
So, yeah, you got to think with your head, not with your heart.
I was going to ask you, what if there's somebody that was planning on retiring in March 2020, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they saw their net worth or, retirement funds get cut by 30%. But he kind of answered it. If they had waited another month or 2 months, it would have been right back up to where it was.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the history. You can, statistics don't lie, although you can make them say whatever you want to. But I mean, if you take a look at the 70 plus year history of the stock market, you can take a look. The interesting thing is, if you were to take a look at all the big things that have happened geopolitically in our history, like presidential assassinations and natural disasters, et cetera, 9/11, you name it. You take a look at it and how the stock market responded, and it has virtually always come back and continued to grow after a little hiccup. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there were people who were intending to retire, in March, and okay, so maybe they got to work for another year. I don't know. Every person's situation is different, but by and large, if you're still in the middle of your working years, forget it. Have it. Go grab a Coke and relax, and wait for a better day.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here, because if we never retire, then if our retirement fund cuts in half, I wasn't planning on using it anyway.
Well, it's funny because we met with our financial planner, I don't know, about 6 months ago. And because we're starting to, I'm in my early 60s, and we're starting to talk about, okay, we are eventually going to step away from our earning years before too long. Mm-hmm. And the guy said, and we were talking about risk tolerance and how I'm invested, and whether or not we need to make any changes to some more conservative positions. And he said, well, how would you feel if your retirement assets, if 20% of your retirement assets disappeared tomorrow? I said, well, I mean,
good question.
It wouldn't thrill me, obviously, but I wouldn't panic. It would I just have to ride it out. And lo and behold, a couple months after that, my retirement assets went down by probably more than that, but they're back. And the other key to that is diversification. A 50-cent word for a 2-cent concept. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, like I've got a military retirement. I've got a small retirement from United Airlines. I'll get a retirement from my current job and a side income from, as a coach, if I can develop that into, however big a business I want to, no one thing, I don't have a single point of failure in my financial portfolio. And that's a pretty important concept to get.
You have multiple sources of income.
Absolutely. Yep. Spread your wealth, man. You gotta be ready.
You've been working for most of your life. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that the way to get really rich and really wealthy and live a good life is that they have to go and become entrepreneurs and make their own company. And that kind of thing. I think you're living proof that that's not true, because you have multiple sources of income coming in, and you built that all from working
Hard
at
work.
companies.
Yeah. And it really, you use kind of a key word there, Arjun, get wealthy. What's wealthy?
Yeah.
Define wealthy, I mean, if you've got your heart set on owning a Gulfstream and jet setting off to, Vail to go skiing, well, then it's going to take some assets to do that. For me, wealthy is being here in my house with my family. We'll go out in the backyard and put a fire in the fire pit and put on some music and just kind of chill with each other. That, as far as I'm concerned, that makes me the richest man on earth. So, I mean, learn to be content. I guess that's the idea. You can buy fun, but you can't buy happy. You got to decide to be happy.
Yeah. So I want to explain a little bit about the format for the rest of the show. It does have a structure to it now. After 3 episodes, I decided, okay, we're going to put a structure on it.
Well, there you go.
So I got a couple more questions for you, because I want to ask you about kids, and how to have a successful marriage in terms of finances and that kind of thing. And then we're going to go. So this is the sort of the phase that we're in right now is the RFI phase.
Okay.
Right?
Works for me.
I think you know these acronyms. Then we're going to move into the RFQ phase. All right.
Actually, I gotta confess, those acronyms are not familiar to me. But
oh, really? Okay. RFQ, request for. Actually, I don't know what that stands for, but for
RFI is request for information in the engineering space.
Yeah. Request for quotation is what RFQ is. But here it means request for or rapid fire questions.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Oh, rapid fire questions. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So they're going to be short questions, like yes or no, just whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
And then after that, we're going to do RFCs. Request for clarification.
Oh, okay. Might need more, might need a lot of that, but we'll see.
And then at the end, we're going to have an RFB.
Okay.
Request for broadcast.
Oh, broadcast. Okay.
What were you going to say?
No, I don't know. I was trying to think what B might stand for.
So that's going to be, you can share your message, whatever that you want to tell people. You'll have 3 minutes. I'm going to shut the hell up, and you can just talk and say whatever you want to say.
Okay.
And that's the show. And then we'll say thank you for coming to the Righteous Finance Show.
Great.
And then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll have the after show.
Okay.
Ooh, the after show.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. All right. So you've been married for 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that are in my age group and a lot of my friends, they're in this stage where they're dating people now. They're thinking about getting married to the person that they're dating, or some of them have even gotten married and they're in the early phases of marriage and they're having kids now. As what advice would you give somebody? Like, you've been in a marriage for 30 years. It seems like it's successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of advice would you tell somebody who's just getting started or thinking about marriage now? How do you make a successful marriage in terms of finances?
Well, just simply in terms of finances, just lots of open and honest communication. Make sure that you both have a why. You've talked about, why are we doing this? Budgeting is not particularly fun, but we are going to do it because we have this common goal, and the goal is, fill in the blank. Talk about it, be in agreement on what lifestyle sacrifices you're willing to make to get to that. Spit, shake, pinky swear, and off you go. Lock arms and skip off into the sunset together. Financially, within that narrow little slice of pie, that's the answer. It's just lots of open communication. Do it on a regular basis. Update each other. Don't be afraid to, call each other out. If you've agreed to X and your spouse is doing Y, say, hey, this is not what we agreed to. Let's revisit the plan. And that would be my advice.
I think that's a much better answer than I asked about the financial side, but what yours, this is how you make a successful marriage just in general. Because open and honest communication, that's going to make everything better.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
honestly.
start by marrying your best friend.
Yeah.
That would be the key. You need, whether or not you love somebody is kind of a choice. You decide to love somebody or something. And whether or not you like that person is kind of a question of DNA. You either like the person or you don't. The chemistry. The chemistry is there. Well, that's how I define like. And then you can choose whether or not to devote your life to that person. That's called love.
So how do
So
you know
yeah,
if that
marry
person,
your best friend.
how do you know if that person is your best friend? And how do you know if you like them?
You just want to be around them. I mean, when my wife and I decided, and I mean, you got, of course, I grew up in a different generation, but I mean, we met on a blind date. And from the day we met to the day we got married, a little over a year later, we lived 1,000 miles apart.
Wow. Did you
We
guys
didn't
meet on
even,
Tinder?
we didn't even know. Tinder, Tinder, yeah, right. No, we didn't even date till after we got married.
Wow.
But the handful of times we saw each other, it was instantaneous. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to go through that future with this person. I don't want to face my future without this person by my side. Game, set, and match.
Wow.
I
Interesting.
mean, we there's no email, no computers. I mean, we called on the phone a lot, wrote letters. I mean, I was based in Mississippi in the Air Force, and she lived in Virginia. I got back up to Virginia once in a while to see her, a handful of times, about once a month if we were lucky. But that was our dating experience till we got married. But there was never any question in our minds. It's like, okay, this is the person I want to do life with. Let the chips fall.
So you really got to know somebody, or you got to know your wife really well before, and that's how you knew, I guess. But I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, obviously we had a lot to learn about each other, and
Yeah.
that age of discovery for us happened after we got married. But we knew enough about each other that we said, okay, this is like a puzzle piece that fits. This is right. This is how it should feel. Okay, life, bring it on.
Wow, amazing.
Been swinging at the pitches as they come across the plate ever since.
So you've had hard times come up, I'm sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I'm guessing right here, but I'm sure there's been times where it's like, have you ever thought that you didn't make the right decision, or that there could have been a better option out there for you?
No. I mean, the natural human tendency is to believe that the grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
I think lots of human experience tells us that that's not true. I mean, you're always going to have, highs and lows in any relationship. And if you go into a marriage thinking the honeymoon phase is going to last forever, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said, though, I mean, you're going to have bad times. You're going to have tough times financially. You might have tough times, with kids, with in-laws, I don't know if there's spiritual differences, whatever it is, I mean, you address those as best you can, but I mean, the bottom line is that no matter what life threw at us, we knew that we wanted to go through it together, and we'd make it up as we go. Every night is like, being a brand new parent. Every night is amateur night. I've never been a parent of a kid this age before. I guess we better make it up as we go. I remember leaving the hospital with our first kid, and the nurse said, okay, take whatever you want off that cart over there, grab some diapers and wipes. And I said, you are coming home with us, right? Because we don't know how to do this. He said, you're on your own. Get out. Okay.
This is where our services end. You got to take care of this thing from here.
You got, you got all you're getting from us.
So a lot of people now say that they're hesitant to get into a relationship, or hesitant to ask their girlfriend to marry them because they think that there might be something better there, or they're still waiting to see something, like they got to live with them for a little bit. They got to, I don't know. One common thing that I've noticed is that they think, oh, there might be somebody better out there for me. What would you say to those people?
That's a hard one to say. I mean, I think when you describe that, and I know exactly what you're talking about, I think what you're probably describing is an instinctive desire for that honeymoon phase, to keep living life in that honeymoon phase. when you first meet somebody, it's new, the butterflies in the stomach and you're exciting, and you can't wait to see the person, yada, yada, yada. And you want that to last all the time because it's exhilarating and it's fun. But that's not how life works. I mean, I've known lots of people who have abandoned, marriages that they decided they weren't happy in anymore in order to go, do something more exciting with somebody new, and that almost never turns out well. So,
right.
Life isn't always going to be, rosy. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. You just need to learn to power through them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's some good advice. All right, so I want to ask you about having children. You have kids. How old are your kids?
Our son will be 29 in August, and our daughter just turned 26.
So how did you teach them about money?
Well, it started at an early age. First of all, we were open and honest about the communication at age appropriate, communication about money. I didn't tell my kids how much I made or how much it cost to keep the lights on in the house until they were teenagers, because at 5 years of age, that wouldn't have, resonated with them. But, at that age, we came up with little jobs for them to do in exchange for getting a commission or an allowance, whatever you want to call it. But we tried to attach some value to that. I remember one time we were, I had my daughter, and we'd gone to a 7-Eleven for something, and she wanted a magazine. She was, I don't know, she 10 or 11 years old, and she had a little bit of money saved up from birthday gifts and, allowance and what have you. And she wanted a magazine. I said, sure, you can get a magazine. You've got money, help yourself. I don't care what you spend your allowance on.
Okay.
And the instant I said that, she suddenly didn't want the magazine anymore.
Wow.
She thought I was going to pay for it. I said, I'm not going to pay for it. You want a magazine? Buy a magazine. It's your money. Suddenly, all of a sudden, when it was her money, yeah, I'm not sure I want that thing quite that bad. But Dad, if you're paying, I'll take it. So, welcome to life, kid. But I think one of the big mistakes the families make, especially as kids get older, they're in high school and they're getting ready to take on college, is like you said at the beginning of our conversation, Arjun, it's just not something we talk about. And I remember at one point I took my my kids, both of them aside, and I told them exactly how much I make. I said, here's our annual income. And I made a little bit of a game out of it. I said, how much do you think it costs for us to live in this house? How much do you think a mortgage payment is? Yeah. How much do you think we spend every month on food? And they, of course, they had no idea, nor did I expect them to. They couldn't, because they had no basis to know that. But then I told them I showed them the money. Show me the money. And I did. And suddenly they recognized, oh, wow, this is a big deal. I mean, Dad works hard. We see him go to work every single day, and sometimes he's working in the evenings, and it's all to provide for this because all of this costs this much.
Yeah,
so
they kind of put the pieces together.
Yeah. And the tragic thing is that as kids go off to college, if they haven't had that foundation, they're going to be inundated with offers for credit cards and all other manner of things that are just going to put them behind the 8 ball when they graduate. Now, I don't know what the average student loan is, but it's 5 figures. I know that. I mean, kids are coming out of college with astronomical loads of student debt,
right.
Student loan debt, and it'll take them decades to pay it off. Well, how come nobody ever stopped them and said, let's do a little economic analysis here. You're getting a degree in, some field. Let's pretend a kid wants to be a teacher. Great, fabulous career. It's respectable, noteworthy, do good, get a job. What's the highest potential earning, level for a teacher? I don't know. What is it? Pick a number, $75,000. Okay, but you're going to rack up $150,000 in student loan debt for a job that you're probably going to love, but you're never going to make a ton of money, and you have to start paying that loan off right away. How's that going to happen?
Yeah, most people don't think about that.
No.
They think that the degree is going to set them up for life.
Exactly. Yeah, and the whole notion of taking a look at community college versus a 4-year school, and doing things as inexpensively as possible, work while you go to school. In fact, I remember my son, this was actually kind of a good object lesson for him. He's actually good with money. He knows what he's doing with his money. When he was a freshman in college, he had a girlfriend. Now, he went to college not too far from where we live. He lived in the dorms. He was about 45 minutes from here, but he lived in the dorms. But he had a girlfriend who was a senior in high school when he was a freshman in college. And he came home almost every weekend, not to see us, but to see her. And I understand that. I
understand that too.
But, he had saved up enough money for his living expenses. And we had this conversation before school ever started. I said, okay, we are covering tuition, room, and board. We saved up. We got 529 plans. We got it covered. But you're going to pay for beer, pizza, and toga parties. I'm not footing the bill for that. Okay. And by November, his entire year of spending money was gone because he was coming home to wine and dine his girlfriend. And, he came to me and said, hey, Dad, I'm out of money. I said, well, I guess it sucks to be you. Get a job. And he did. And he worked for the rest of his time in college. He was a waiter at the joint across the street from the campus, and
amazing.
He paid his way. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well,
most people would not do that. Most people would say, "Oh, okay, here's some money."
No. Well, as a matter of fact, I'll take that a step further. He actually did not graduate in 4 years, and at the end of the 4th year, I took him aside and said, "Son, the next sound you're going to hear is my checkbook slamming shut. You are done. I don't care if you finish your degree or not. I'm done paying." And the agreement was we would get you through 4 years. We got you through 4 years. Go on out and discover America. He eventually finished, but he finished on his nickel.
He finished on his own time and his own dime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a lot of people are not going to do that, though. They're not going to want to say no to their kids when they ask. They don't want to see them suffer because they think, he's going to move out on the street and become homeless or something.
If you think you're helping them avoid suffering by always saying yes, you are seriously deluding yourself.
Exactly right.
The most valuable thing they can hear is no. Learn how to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yep. Do you think that financial literacy or finances should be taught in the schools?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I think it's one of the most important things we could teach our kids.
Did your kids have that in school? Did they learn that in school?
They did a little bit. We had our school system was pretty ahead of the times that way. They had some courses on that. And as a matter of fact, I remember one time, this was kind of cool, a homework assignment that my son had. This was in 8th grade. I think it was in a social studies class with a block on finance. And they had to research what the average starting salary was for whatever job they felt like they wanted to do, quote unquote, when they grew up. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, I want to be whatever, police officer, teacher, whatever. All right, go find out what the average starting salary is, and then build a budget. Okay, go research in your town where you live, how much are apartments? How much does it cost to buy a car? How much does it cost to buy food? Look in the paper and see what the ads say about, what groceries are on sale this week, and build a budget. And that was a very eye-opening experience for him. He and I sat down at the table and looked at a lot of that stuff. He started out wanting to, live in a bachelor pad and drive a Corvette. And by the time he was done, he had 8 roommates and was, riding his bike to work. And said, "Life costs money, kid. Welcome to the world."
I mean, I think the best education for finance and money is what you have taught them at home. Like, for example, saying no to your daughter for the magazine. You buy it with your own money, right? And then telling your son, "Hey, you got to figure this out."
Yeah, and they
I don't think you can teach that in school. I don't think that's something that sitting in a classroom. Right. That's like a life lesson that you just got to learn on your own.
Life experience is obviously the best teacher, and we were never going to let our kids fail to the point where they got hurt. We're going to we were their safety net. That's our job as parents. But their job is to explore the limits. It's just like when I was flying airplane. I needed to go out and max perform that airplane so I knew what it could do. So I knew where the edge of the envelope was. So I didn't go past the edge of the envelope. Well, I needed to let my kids experiment with the edge of the envelope and let them feel some pain.
Right.
Okay. Well, what that decision you just made, that was really stupid. whining and dining your girlfriend and using up a whole year's worth of spending money in 3 months was really stupid. So here's the pain. Go get a job. Not my problem. I already had 2 jobs. I didn't care. So I lived through it. So I figured he probably would too.
Yeah. Yeah, they will. Kids will figure stuff out.
Oh yeah.
You just
Well,
gotta give them
kids are the toughest humans on earth. I mean, like I said before, you become a parent without any experience being a parent. Kids better be tough because they're being raised by amateurs.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. All right, I want to ask you. So let's move into the RFQs now.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions and just say whatever comes to mind. Most of them are going to be yes or no. So you ready?
You bet.
All right, cool. So here's the first RFQ. What is money?
What is money? Oh my gosh. Well, it's a means to an end. I mean, it's the way we do life on this planet. It's a way to exchange value. Not sure. That's an interesting question. I really thought about it.
Okay. What is an emergency fund?
Well, it's primarily a chunk of money you keep set aside for unplanned expenses. And the important element to that is that in the case of the marriage conversation we just had, is that you and your spouse are in agreement as to what you're going to use the money for. For me, it might, for me, the emergency might be, a car repair. Somebody else might say, no, I can handle a car repair. I want it there to replace the roof. Okay, fine. So that's your emergency. Got it.
Okay. Are you rich?
Yes.
Is money time?
No.
Would the world be a better place if everybody had financial freedom?
Not necessarily.
Interesting. Should married couples join all financials?
What's that?
Should married couples join all financials?
Define join all financials.
Like everything is in one system. You file taxes jointly. You share all the accounts, checking, savings, everything.
I'll say yes, but with an asterisk next to it. And by that, I mean, if there are separate accounts that, each member of the couple funds, that's fine. But what there needs to be is unrestricted access and visibility into all the elements of your financial life as a couple. In other words, let's not use money to keep secrets from each other and beat each other up.
Got it. Should you sign a prenup before marriage?
No.
Is money the root of all evil?
No.
Does evil exist?
Yes.
Okay. Is the earth flat or round?
Round.
It's round. All right. Would you become a flat earther for $7 million?
No.
You would not?
No.
Wow. Okay.
If by that you mean someone who believes that the earth is flat? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. If somebody gave you $7 million and they told you all you had to do was just, when asked, say that the earth is flat.
No.
You would not? Okay. Should you follow your passion?
Depends what it is.
Okay. Interesting. Is money finite or infinite?
Finite.
Should you pay for your children's college education?
No.
Okay. Let's say that your kids are grown up and they're adults and capable of working, right? Should you give your kids money or shelter once they reach that stage?
Should you give your kids money? Well, there's no yes or no to that. I mean, it depends on the circumstances. As a general rule, no. They're adults. They should stand on their own 2 feet.
Okay. Interesting. That's all the questions I had.
Okay. Now, is this where we go to the request for clarification?
Now we can clarify, yeah.
Okay.
Should lean on some of these. So you said you're rich, huh?
Yes.
So what makes you rich?
Well, my family and the fact that I know how to be content regardless of how much money I have.
So money doesn't really play too much of a role in that. It plays maybe a component of it, but it's not like the most important thing for being rich.
No, well, wealth is a condition of your heart.
Yeah.
It's like the difference, it's like happiness and fun. You can buy fun, but you have to decide whether or not to be happy. And someone who has decided to be happy regardless of their external circumstances is rich.
I really like that definition.
What's next?
So you said money is not time.
No.
People say that all the time, though. Time is money.
Well, yeah, that's a cliche, but what they really mean is that time is the limitation within which we have to live on this earth, and everybody gets 168 hours a week, and you can use them however you want.
Oh, so they mean like time is a
you want
currency that you can use.
Say again?
They mean like time is a currency that you can use as
Well,
you see fit.
time is, yeah. I mean, it goes back. It goes to like opportunity cost. If I want to spend an hour working on my business to try to grow it, that's fine. I can do that, and the end result will probably be more money. But that's an hour that I couldn't spend sitting on the couch with my kids, watching TV and hanging out and eating popcorn and being silly.
So it's like if you want to buy an ice cream sandwich for $3, and that $3 is not something that you could save for, I don't know, retirement or something.
Yes, it's all goes back to opportunity cost.
Same concept.
If I'm good, and it applies to money as well as time. If you're going to spend your time doing this, then by definition, you can't also be doing that. That's one thing at a time.
So let's go back to that question. What is money? You said it was a means to an end.
Yeah. I mean, that's how our society functions. It's a way to exchange value. You have something of value that I want. Well, you deserve to receive something of equal value in return. And, that's the equalizer. That's how, I mean, well, let's pretend you've got, I don't know, some commodity I want. You've got tools, and I need one of the tools that you have. And in exchange for that tool, you want food. Well, I don't happen to have any food. So in the absence of money, we just don't have a transaction. Money allows us to execute that transaction. So it's a common denominator, I guess.
But before we had money, like, currencies and coins and numbers in our bank account, we'd still trade things. Like we would just trade things. I don't know, I trade my oxen for your sheep or your hammer or something, right?
I guess that's how it used to work, yeah.
So aren't those the same thing as money then?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. Currency. Yeah.
So money is like, so what is it really? If you had to give like a short definition of what money is.
It's the medium used to exchange value, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Okay. And it's you said it's finite.
Well, not the way our government does things, but yeah, it ought to be.
Okay. And what does that mean? Like, why isn't it infinite, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, I guess in the sense that, you have whatever net worth you have. You don't have an infinite amount of buying power. You have however much money you have. I have however much money I have. So in that sense, it's finite. And just like we said before, if I want more, I have to spend time to generate more.
Okay.
As a general rule. I mean, there are people who make money without having to spend any time doing it by earning dividends and earning interest instead of paying interest on debt and what have you. But yeah.
So you have to give up something in order to get more money is.
Well, as a general rule, I mean, obviously the people get money without having to earn it. They inherit it or receive it as a gift or steal it.
Right. But you can. What I'm trying to get at, I mean, you can always make more money, right?
As a general rule. Yeah.
So I think money is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that concept, you can always make more money. Like, let's say that you wanted to buy a yacht or something or a house or whatever, there exists an amount of money that you can get to make that happen.
Right.
And whatever that amount is, you can get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective, and you're absolutely right. In that context, absolutely, yeah. It's, for all intents and purposes, limitless. So yeah, assuming you have the wherewithal and the skill and the resources to apply yourself to the activity that's going to generate that amount of money that you need to go buy that yacht. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, okay, this is interesting. So the Earth is round, but you wouldn't change your mind if somebody gave you $7 million
No,
and become a flat earther. Why not?
because that would be a lie.
It would be a lie. So you wouldn't want to lie for money.
No.
Do you think a lot of people would
Yes.
take that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what would be the bad thing about that? Because, like, let's say that you wanted some, if you got $7 million, you'd be financially free, financially independent. You could do whatever you want. You could do a lot of good with that money if you had that kind of intentions, right?
Yeah.
What would be why would that be a bad deal to take?
Well, thou shalt not lie comes to mind. I'm not sure which commandment that is, but I know it's one of the top 10. So no, I mean there's and it all goes back to how you choose to live your life. I mean, I've got a strong Christian moral foundation, and that's the most important thing in my life. So no, I would not compromise my moral foundation for money. I wouldn't do that.
Wow, right on. That's good. Do you think that there was ever a time in your life, like let's say when you were living kind of struggling with money and you didn't have that $400, or you thought you didn't have the $400 that your financial planner talked about, at that point when you're like in the midst of things, I need to change something, and somebody came to you and made that offer, would you take it at that point?
I assume you're talking about some sort of an illegal or immoral offer.
No, that same offer. All you got to do is just say that the Earth is flat.
Oh no, never.
Didn't take it at that point.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, there's no earthly circumstance I could find myself in that would compel me to violate what God created me to be while I'm here on Earth. I mean, besides, what kind of an example would that set for my kids?
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. That's really
It's
powerful.
perfectly okay. Just lie, cheat, and steal. Do whatever you need to do to get ahead.
Yeah.
Really? No, because someday we're all going to be asked to give an accounting of our days to the good Lord, and this stuff is all going to go away, but that lasts for eternity.
There's more important things than money.
Absolutely.
That brings us. I want to ask you. I want to talk a little bit more about that. But that brings up the question. What question did I ask? Oh, if the world would be a better place if everybody had financial freedom. That's what I thought when I started going towards it. But you said that it wouldn't be a better place.
Nope.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because again, we're going to kind of tiptoe into spiritual territory here, but I mean, we are a fallen people. I mean, we are broken, sinful people, and the presence of money doesn't cure that. I mean, just look at the headlines on any given day. You find the richest people among us that do outlandish things to get even more money.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, how much does it take? In fact, as a matter of fact, since we're on the subject, I actually do a little bit of instruction on the last class of each Financial Peace University class that I lead. I give an example, because the point that I want to get across to the people is that, okay, you've been through 9 weeks of this class. We're going to unleash you on the world, and you feel like you've got a lot of knowledge now that you didn't have before, and you do, and that's good. But you can never let your guard down. Mm-hmm. And the war story, kind of long story, but I'll make it short, is not all that long ago, after I'd been doing this for a good number of years, I kind of fell into the trap of feeling like I would like to consider moving to a very nice lakefront property not far from where we live right now, because some other friends of mine lived there, and it was very enticing and it would be great. I knew we couldn't afford it. There's no way we could afford it. We can't to this day. But I still went through the motions of tying up a realtor's time for an entire day to go around and look at houses and pretend that I could do it. And in my mind's eye, I was thinking, well, let's see, if I sell everything I own, including the kids, maybe I can make the mortgage payment. And at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, why? How did I fall for that? What?
Yeah.
Me of all people who teaches this stuff. So I prayed about it, and then God answered me. And he pointed out that in the beginning, he created all of us. Well, he created Adam and Eve with both the ability and the desire to possess only that which can be supplied by an infinite supplier, because God is infinite and he has access to everything. He created everything. So he had to create us with both the ability and the desire to possess it. And then one bite of the apple later, if you're familiar with the Bible, we separated ourselves from that supply. Nothing about our created nature changed. We just took it with us. So we still have that desire to possess more and more. We just don't have access to it. Mm. So if everybody had financial independence, our hearts are still broken. Our hearts are still, sinful. We would still want more.
There's the key.
Our created nature.
100%. I agree with you.
You have to operate. You have to make an intentional decision to operate against your created nature in order to live, I think, as close as we can to what our Creator wants.
When I started my journey into going, like, I want to get financial independence, I want to retire early, that's what I thought. I thought that, if everybody had financial freedom, then the decisions that they made wouldn't be based on like financial necessity. Because in my head, I had seen a lot of people like trade their values, or I don't know, sell their values short in order to keep their paycheck or to make a lot of money. Like, kind of, you sell your soul to the devil in a way, right?
Right.
And I thought, well, if everybody had like a big emergency fund and substantial investments, then they wouldn't say yes to those kinds of things. That they wouldn't say like, oh, okay, well, what you're asking me to do goes against my morals, so I'm not going to do it because I have plenty of money in the bank and I don't need your money. That's what I thought would happen. But as I saw more people and heard more stories, I realized that that's not true at all.
No.
Because I saw people that didn't do that, like what you're talking about and what you did, who, they were not financially free or independent or anything like that. And they said, no, I'm not going to do that anyway. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sell myself short or sell my values short to peddle whatever it is that you want me to peddle.
And it goes back to the funny little sight picture I'm sure you've heard before and over again. I've never seen a U-Haul in a funeral procession. You can't take it with you. It all ends on the day you die. And then you got to answer for how you lived. And money ceases to exist. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to when I finally meet my Savior face to face, is that, as near as I can tell from all the near-death experiences I've read about, money does not exist in heaven. And I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, is money man-made thing? Something that we made up?
Sure. Yeah, it didn't exist when we were created.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of the thing also that I was thinking about too when I was starting my journey into financial freedom, is that if everybody had unlimited money, essentially, then we wouldn't be, it becomes irrelevant. And then we can kind of just live our lives without it.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it really comes down to the condition of everyone's heart. We're broken and separated from our Creator.
So how do you get back to that?
What's that?
How do you get back to, like you said, there was something that you can't access. Our created nature is the way we can't access it, right?
Well, we don't have access to God's infinite supply because we're not in communion with Him anymore. We're separated from Him. We aren't back together again until we enter into the next life.
Oh, okay. This is not a financial question, but I'm just curious, like, what you mean by that. Can you share more about what you mean?
Well, I just mean, again, we'll get back to the specifics of the biblical story of Adam and Eve, who were in perfect, communion with God. They had full access to Him and had, full access to everything He could supply. And once they separated themselves from Him, and consequently all of us from Him, there's nothing we can do to reconnect with that supply while we're here on this earth. Now, you can choose whether or not to make His Son your Lord and Savior, which is what I have done, and that, then the Holy Spirit takes up residence in my heart and guides my days, and I have a direct relationship to look forward to when I enter into eternal life. But in the meantime, I'm playing by the same rules as everybody else. We have to live within the confines of time, and like you said, time is money, and we need money to survive. It's it's a vicious cycle.
But time is not money.
Time is the thing we need to spend in order to earn money. I know, yeah. I hear you.
Okay. Let's see here. How we're doing on time. Do you have any RFCs?
Let's see. Oh boy. No, I just enjoy, getting the chance to talk about this stuff, and talk about the things that I've done. I guess maybe the fact that I've been, more or less, I tell people I've been successful in life despite my best efforts to the contrary, which is proof positive that God exists and He's alive in my life. He's pulled my bacon out of the fire more than once, and time goes by fast.
Yeah.
Suddenly you look up and you're close to 60, and got to start thinking about retirement. And if that's the first time you start thinking about it, it's probably not going to be a real happy retirement. So, pay attention.
I want to ask you about you said couples should not sign a prenup.
Well, yes, I did. And I mean, as a general rule, well, let me kind of expand on that just a little bit. I would have no reason to sign a prenup, nor would my wife, because when we got married, there was nothing to protect. We had,
okay.
Yeah, right.
I
mean, if you, I suppose if you're a multimillionaire and you're considering getting married, and it's something that you feel like you need to do, then I mean, the mechanism exists for a reason. My wife and I never entered into our marriage with any expectation that it wouldn't last until death do us part. It was a lifetime commitment, so there was no need for a prenup. But number one, we didn't have any assets that would have driven us to one, and number two, we went into this whole thing with a unassailable commitment to go through this thing together forever. So you didn't need it.
That makes sense. I don't know how I feel about it too. I can see both sides of it. On one hand, not signing a prenup where you're getting married, so you should be together forever, until you die, until death do you part, as you said.
Right.
So you should have no reason for one. It's just an extra piece of paper that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But then on the other hand, if you do sign a prenup, then it's like, well, it's in case things go badly, which you shouldn't really be thinking about separating if you're getting together.
Well, yeah, that's just it. And if you think you've seen some history in the person that you're about to marry that suggests that maybe he or she has you are going to be their fifth spouse, and the other four.
Well, then I would sign a prenup.
Yeah. I'm not trying to
maybe get an insurance policy that's really
multiple times, but if this person has a history of getting married and lasting 1 year and then taking their spouse's all their net worth and running off to the next marriage, then number one, you probably don't want to marry that person. Number two, maybe
right. So then you wouldn't even need a prenup.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm just like the accepted answer for people in my generation, I think, is to get a prenup signed. Like everybody says, get a prenup, sign one. Because if you're going to be together forever, it doesn't matter. Just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. But in case things go badly, then it's good to have one.
Yeah. No, but again, we're talking about generational difference. I mean, you're 20 something, I'm 60 something. We grew up in different ages, so it's very different.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the concept of marriage is still the same as it always has been. You know, we might have diluted it a little bit
I remember
nowadays,
my
but
father telling me one time, married, when he and my mother got married, and they were married, I don't know, 50 some odd years before he died. Uh, he said they were as committed to the institution as they were to each other.
the institution.
Institution of marriage.
Oh, okay.
In other words, they didn't go into it with an eye of, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll just run to the divorce court and end it.
Right.
I mean, I've known people who were married for 6 weeks. It was like an exotic date. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like buying a new car and then like, I don't
Yeah,
like this
exactly.
car.
Yeah. So
Wow.
a different mindset. That's all.
Yeah. But that's interesting. It's interesting how it changes. I don't think much has changed in terms of the human nature. I think it's been very the same ever since we've been like caveman years.
Sure.
But I think just because we have the perception or the illusion of technological change and advancement and all this kind of stuff that we think like, oh yeah, we're super advanced now. But like one of the things that we opened with here is, or you said, the way to have a successful marriage is to have communication with the other person. Like we're still working on that part. How do I communicate with this person that's there? We're both people. We're both kind of going through the same things in life, but there's like, we have a hard time doing that still. So I think, I think we're still very primal.
Yeah. And also on the marital communication thing, it's hard. I mean, you have to be willing to have the uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah. And to say no.
Learn to say no, and learn to argue in a healthy way. Healthy disagreement. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to make it stronger. But it's an unpleasant aspect of you put two imperfect people together. I mean, when you multiply, a fraction less than 1 times another fraction less than 1, you get a smaller fraction, right?
That's
So
true.
you take two imperfect people, put them together, you got an even larger imperfection as a couple. And so you just have to work through that.
We got to turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
So do you have you ready for the RFB?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to say anything. You can share whatever you want. You can, I don't know, it's up to you. You can talk about how you help people, what your ideal client is. Like you can share any kind of message that you want. It's really up to you. The floor is yours. So.
Well, essentially you asked about the ideal client. I mean, we attempt to define that as we're building these businesses. And mine is working with young couples who make a decent salary, but they just have a month left at the end of the money. And they make too much money to feel this broke. Maybe they got a couple of young kids and they're doing okay, but things are disorganized, because that's who I was for so many years. So I can relate to that. And I know what it takes to fix that. And like we said before, Arjun, it's all about good communication. Learning to tell yourself no, learning to have an honest conversation with your spouse that might lead to no as the answer, and just be okay with that. Learn to be content regardless of your circumstances, and wait together to see what tomorrow brings. I'd say that's about it.
Cool. That was nice.
This was fun.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you for coming. I very much appreciate you coming on this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is awesome.
I've enjoyed the work that you and I have done over the past couple of months. We're coming up on the end of that phase and start into the next one. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, it's been good getting to know you as well. I'm glad that we had this too, because there's more stuff that I learned about you in this talk that I didn't know from from the other meetings that we have.
Yeah. Well, it's this is a lot more, and we'll continue to share as time goes by.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I've got I don't think I told you I've written 2 books.
You have?
I can send you my copy of my books if you want.
What are the books?
Yeah, one of them is called "So Are the Skies Really Gonna Part?" And I was in the Pentagon on 9/11, and it starts out as a description of that experience, and then it segues into a Salvation 101 message. We were talking about our Christian beliefs and what have you.
Yeah.
So that's what that one's about. And then the other one is called "In the Beginning," and that one's about money, because I found myself saying the same things over and over again to my clients about some basic behavioral moral kinds of things as it relates to money. So I decided to write it all down instead of having to say it over and over again. So,
Okay. Wow.
yeah, but if you want, I'll send you copies, and you can.
Yeah.
If you have an
absolutely.
insomnia problem, you just that should solve it. It's awesome.
Okay. Well, I was thinking of a joke, but it didn't work out.
Okay.
So you're in the Pentagon when 9/11 happened? So did a plane actually hit the building? Because you know that the theory that there wasn't a plane, that instead it was like a Tomahawk missile.
All right.
All right, Dale. Thanks
Have
for
a
coming.
fun. You bet. Have a great rest of the day and enjoy your weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.